And that fatigue penetrates the movie, making it seem as though spectators are being guided into a section of the story that Tamar never talked about. His remarks have already been spliced alongside her written interview responses by users. Her voice seems distant, ethereal, and almost fragile. His is laced with pain, grounded and acute. The friction between those conflicting impulses slows down her pauses, which commentary channels call the crack in the narrative. When they contrast the accuracy of his timeline with the vagueness of her memories, they concentrate on his face. Conjecture has a life of its own, but when he moves away from the emotional temperature increases again as he brings general complaints to this section of the story he has been avoiding for months. He doesn't start by accusing. He starts off with the kind of discomfort that lingers in someone's voice. He says he was never at peace with Tamar and Mendeecees' interactions, including those in the song, video, and restaurants. That 8-second video serves as the foundation for theories on the internet. Not because he makes a big issue out of it, nor because he depicts it as a controversy, but the agony seems too real and unadulterated to be ignored. There is no performance in his tone. There isn't any hyperbole. He appears to be confessing something that he had kept to himself to keep a loved one safe. And that's the exact reason why people find it appealing. People begin rewatching old films of Tamar and Mendeecees at public events in an effort to locate anything that might resemble the uneasiness he talks about. His comment, according to some, reveals something that hasn't been stated. According to some, it just highlights tension that existed prior to the interview. However, there is one thing that everyone agrees upon. At this moment, the story shifts from confusion to a darker emotional terrain. The part of the chronology that generated the most heated online rumors comes next. She wrote of waking up covered in blood that night. Without any ceremony, he lifts it, but it's obvious he's perplexed. He mentions Tamar's online assertion that she woke up in a pool of blood and almost died. People freeze the video, replay it, edit it into reaction videos, and compare it to her poise during the interview after it becomes viral. This disparity acts as gasoline because of the illogical contrast. People begin to question why her account appears so disjointed. Why does her memory seem fragmented? Why did she emphasize dread in the interview but not in the post? Then, rather than the claim itself, it is the mismatch that ignites the flames. As he continues to describe what transpired that night, the narrative becomes increasingly concentrated on a single topic of feeling. He was uneasy even if he didn't fully understand what he was witnessing. The subsequent finding, which viewers call the turning point, centers on thought discomfort. He talks about how Tamar made him uncomfortable by kissing him while sitting on his lap in the automobile. At that point, the internet goes down, frame by frame. It is slowed down by commentary channels. Because this clip gave the entire era a fresh perspective, rewinds and screen grabs make threads explode out. Comments start to come from those who had never followed the story. His voice gets heated as he talks about it. It's because he's confused, not because he's jealous. Viewers get the feeling that there was more going on that night than Tamar acknowledged due to misunderstanding. A form of emotional dissonance. Conjecture starts to become more serious at this point. It is no longer charges or unequivocal declarations. Online investigators begin to piece together timeframes, though, based only on the silence between their stories and speculations that have been confirmed or refuted. They are perplexed as to why Mendeecees appeared multiple times in one evening. They question why Tamar's recollection does not reflect the emotional significance of that moment. They are perplexed as to why a person who was unaware of the events made decisions that seemed well considered with each inquiry. That is still unresolved. Anxiety rises. The audience no longer has the impression that they are seeing people who were discussed that same evening. They now feel as though they are seeing the clash of two different realities, one calm and the other vibrant tanned. They are looking for the truth. The atmosphere around the story changes once at the point where the two storylines split. More, the interview tapes provide shadows rather than clarity as this portion ends. Slowly and silently, as though a deeper reality is orbiting the timeline's periphery, waiting to be recognized. The question that now pervades every thread in those shadows begins viewers. What in the parts that can fully explain if they're both being what they remember. The story gets more as the night goes on, from pragmatism, from the places they visited to the cracks those places revealed. The nervousness builds in silently, like fog that, instead of rising like a sudden storm, creeps across a road as visibility has vanished. This chapter begins at the point where the unsaid plague both timelines. After that, his story doesn't get particularly dramatic. It's not that loud. It's almost too calm, which draws viewers in. He discusses the subtle pressure of being pulled that he did not his reluctance to go anywhere new, and his need to go back home. But underneath all of that, the audience hears something distinct. A sense of tiredness, as if he had already spent too many nights dealing with a reality that Tamar was unwilling to accept. He describes how the vehicle ride changed everything. However, he goes back to the before the intelligence of that moment disappears. Tamar unwittingly triggered another internet disaster. The first post to go viral on the internet was this one. It sounded upsetting. Call a confession, a warning. But today, when he explains it, his tone is more one of surprise than doubt. Rephrased, Tamar stated that she woke up in a pool of blood and almost died. The replay of this moment becomes an obsession on social media. Instead of focusing on the allegation itself, commentators are fixated on what the claim started. Thousands of people are awaiting answers. Thousands of people believed he would reveal something dark or horrible. Thousands were ready to brand him as the enemy before he had even spoken, with every re-upload, reaction video, and stitched comment. The same question of whether she truly believed she was going to die continues coming up. ... What makes it sound like during the interview? Is she narrating someone else's story? However, the false information on the internet only becomes worse when he talks about what happened after she posted that article. It's the underlying contradiction, not the emotional shock. He mentions the occasion when she declined medical help, which now seems like an important piece in a puzzle with too few corners. In other words, he says Tamar almost died, but turned down an ambulance practically right away. This film goes viral and serves as the inspiration for more modern concepts. Refusing medical assistance, according to some viewers, suggests that she wasn't as hurt as she asserted. Some claim that the refusal could be the result of fear, surprise, or a wish to avoid attention. But others who observe a different, the most uncomfortable reaction is the pattern that emerges. Her story sounded emotionally fragmented. His tale appears painfully full and neither makes sense without the spaces. Between them. Her hesitancy and the tone of her hushed voice start to resonate with viewers. As commentary channels slow it down, she is skeptical of his vivid recollection of the occasion. Rather of showing anything, the contrast becomes the cause of mistrust because the human mind despises empty spaces. And this story is full of them. In this story, then he shifts again, moving toward the part of history where even he can't help but notice how she and Mendeecees are interacting. He doesn't label it. He doesn't level any charges. He only conveys discomfort, which isn't an emotional truth that viewers might encounter even in the absence of exaggeration. The scenario that challenges public opinion, however, doesn't change. The rear seat of the vehicle. She was sitting on Mendeecees' lap. Their closeness. The kiss. It strikes differently in this, even though he has already talked about it. It was the altered story, not the act itself. The alteration, according to viewers, never represents. In front of the assembly, the timeline begins to falter. The public's reaction, her performance, and his performance. They don't all agree, and since everyone seems to be chatting around instead of speaking the truth, the tension increases. He enters the scene where Tamar goes back to her home, which changed how the story unfolds. His statement is unsettling because of its clarity rather than mistrust. He describes stepping back, choosing not to follow her upstairs, and believing that the situation was private. But it's only when he recognizes the person who went with her that the importance of that choice becomes clear. Paraphrased, according to him. Tamar just went upstairs with Mendeecees and his online pal. That cue blows up. It's not displayed as a charge. It's not administered with malice. It is simply silent and heavy, like a detail he never meant to reveal. And the silence that follows seems to drown out everything he says. Theories spread swiftly. It is known as, for some people, the pivotal moment. Some say it simply complicates the puzzle. However, everyone agrees that the anticipated blind hole in the time frame. Steer clear. At this moment, Tamar and Funky don't fully explain this missing chapter. Once again, the tone of the book shifts from confusion to something more psychological. Two characters were stuck in a story and couldn't unwind. He describes how club members called him to ask why Tamar was sitting on Mendeecees' lap. Viewers' perplexity combines with that of witnesses. His voice tightens as he describes these calls. They made him realize something crucial, not because he was angry. He had no notion what kind of situation he was in. What kind of relationship he had been witnessing was unknown to him. He didn't understand the depth of their friendship until that evening. However, when Tamar discussed the night later, she totally removed that emotional burden. The audience is number 4. Such silence serves as a trigger. For him, it becomes a wound. It eventually becomes the fault line. When the documentary's storyline begins to fall apart as he discusses what transpired next. The online storm, the abrupt accusations, and the pressure of having to provide an explanation for a night he wasn't there. There were thousands of eyes watching, waiting, and making presumptions and demanding responses that he was unable to provide. This part of the chronology no longer contains any scandals. It has to do with impact, emotional collapse, and the loss of trust. Additionally, viewers start to ponder something deeper the more he talks about the aftermath. Was Tamar shielded by her avoidance, silence, or something His chair stays still and the environment changes. As the camera starts to roll, his shoulders slant forward, his eyes tighten, and the playful tone he started with fades. There's a deep, protracted hush that there's no laughter or careless pull for clicks. But it feels like the breath has been drawn out of the room. He is no longer speaking to a crowd. He's talking to her. One phrase is equivalent to a smack. He informs Tamar that she was a bold-faced, bald-headed liar.